I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. Today, you're going to learn which is better, the LaForge or the TrueD module. I know, we already learned that, didn't we? Well, some people were critical of my test methodology, and as much as I'd like to go, screw you, you're wrong. Some of the criticism was actually valid. I know, doesn't that suck? I hate it too. But I think the best response to criticism of scientific experiments is more better scientific experiments that are completely immune to criticism, that no one can possibly question these results, right? Well, that's the results I'm going to give you today. Let's see if anybody questions them. There was some criticism of my last round of testing of Fatshark diversity module. Well, let's just run through the criticism of all of my testing. In the first round of testing, I didn't run the modules simultaneously. I did sequential runs, one after the other, and in some cases I didn't even do the runs on the same day or even in the same month. I have several rounds where I ran them separately. One case the leaves were on the trees, and one case the leaves were off the trees, and well, okay. The other problem is that I used the DVR, and this is something that I wasn't aware of until I started really digging in to the last round of testing, and I found that the Fatshark DVR drops frames, especially when the video gets really bad. And I went so out of my way to do video editing methods to try and compensate for that, so you could get an accurate sense of which module was getting and which antennas were getting the most breakup. But it still doesn't really reflect what you see in the goggles. And so I've built a test rig that is going to address all of this criticism, I hope. Oh man, I hope. So here's what I've built. This is a device that lets me plug in up to 5 Fatshark modules at a time. At the moment, I'm only testing 2 of them, but if I wanted to do something like camera or antenna testing, I can plug in up to 5 Fatshark modules at a time. I can record the DVR from each one if I so desire. As we know, the DVR is not perfect, but maybe it'd be useful for something. And I can plug as many as 2 of those modules into these screens that you see right here. And I'm going to record those screens with my GoPro. And in fact, you're looking at a screen grab from this exact recording right now. And what that's going to do is it's going to let you see exactly what the pilot would see in the goggles, not what the DVR captures and doesn't choose to capture. And I have run this methodology past the folks at UBAD and past anybody else who might have an opinion, and there seems to be a consensus that this is a pretty good technique. Obviously, these video screens are not exactly the same as a Fatshark goggle, right? Maybe the Fatshark goggle would be a little more sensitive, or maybe a little less sensitive. I don't know. But they're the exact same screen, the same, ordered from at the same time with the same serial number, yada, yada, yada. And so I feel like this is going to be a pretty, hopefully, accurate comparison. I will tell you, though, that I've done other things as we go into the test methodology and I show you the test results to try and make this as fair a test as possible. I do swap the antennas between 2 tests, so we can try and determine if one antenna is just better than the other. Then when I swap the antennas, the results should swap too. The one that looked better should move with the better antenna. But if we swap the antennas and the same module looks better, then that probably means the antennas are the same and the module is actually better. And at one point in the testing, I also swapped the screens. So in the beginning, Fatshark is on the left, or not Fatshark, LaForge is on the left and TrueD is on the right, and I'll swap the screens so that you can see if maybe one screen is just a little better or a little worse than the other. But this is the best I can give you for these test results, and I'm going to show you the results in just one second. But let me acknowledge before I do that, I know, I'm a little sick of this testing. And frankly, I think most of you have made up your minds as to which of these modules you're going to buy. And before we look at the results, I just want to acknowledge that there's many reasons other than raw RF performance to choose one of these modules over the other. But for those of you, in the interest of pure scientific rigor, I felt like I owed it to Francis Bacon, the founder of the scientific method, to repeat this test in a more rigorous way. And if I'm the only one who watches this video, then so be it. I know you guys will watch it too. Let's get to the results. Here's what you're looking at. On the left-hand screen is the LaForge. On the right-hand screen is the Trudy. I've also given you down at the lower part of the screen a close-up of the actual modules. And the reason I show you that is so you can see when they do a diversity switch. On the Trudy, you've got that red LED you can see. It's going to switch over to a blue LED. And on the LaForge, you can see a green LED in the upper right-hand corner of the module when it's on the main module, and that LED is gone when it's on the diversity module. You can also watch the screen itself. There's an RSSI readout on the screen for both of them, and you can see when they swap back and forth. So if you want to freeze frame this, or if you want to play it in slow-mo to look specifically at the diversity switches, or I got to tell you, when I was analyzing this, I played it in slow-mo, and I recommend you do that as well. So you can really see how the screen is breaking up. A lot of times the breakup is so fast that it's easy to miss. Down in the lower right-hand corner, the YouTube gear icon, if you click on that, there's a menu for playback speed, and you can take it to, I think, as slow as a quarter speed. So let me let you watch the test, and you can draw your own conclusions, and then we'll meet you back here, and I'll tell you about the next test.
RF signal low.
The next thing I did was I swapped the antennas between the two modules. So this is to rule out whether one antenna is better than the other and is affecting the results. So when I swapped the antennas and rerun the test, if you thought that the LaForge was better in this test and now the Trudy is better, then it may be that the antenna is the thing that's dominating the results. But if you think the same one is better now as you thought was better before, then that means that the antennas are roughly of equal quality and are not affecting the results. Now that was the range test. Another criticism I've gotten is that my tests don't reflect the way in which the modules are really used. And unless you're doing long-range shots, well, that's not how you're really using the modules. So the next thing I did was I flew some laps around my yard to simulate what you might get for freestyle flying or maybe even racing. Much of what you're going to see is in basically open line of sight, although I am going behind some obstacles. And again, you can take a look at the results. The final thing I'm going to show you here is I landed the copter behind my house. I'm standing all the way down at the street in front of the mailbox, a pretty fair distance away and through a big wood house. And I just left the copter there and watched what the signal did. This is somewhat subject to the whims of the environment, the bounces of the signal and whatnot. But I still feel like it's a valid and fair test because the two antennas, the receiving antennas, are very close together and very far away from the transmitter. So any bounces, I think, would be equal between them. What you see me doing here is swapping the antennas left to right. So the LaForge was on the left, now it's on the right. And I did that to rule out the possibility that one screen was better or worse than the other. So compare the initial part of this parking behind the house to this part and see if you feel like the best one switched when I moved the screens or not. If the best one switched when I moved the screens, that means that the module is best because the best one moved with the module. But if you always think that the left-hand screen looks better or always think that the right-hand screen looks better, then it's the screen. The result is invalid. The left-hand screen seemed to flake out occasionally. It went white there, and I had to power cycle it. I don't know why that is, well, anyway, no, that's not the fault of the module.
Oh, no. Oh, that's a tough one. This is a tough test. Oh, wow. Yeah. All right, I'm going to land it. That's a tough one.
And there you go. Now you've seen the results and you can make your own decision. And I know that from reading the comments in my previous videos that half of you will feel very, very strongly that one of them won, and half of you will feel very, very strongly that the other one obviously won. And I'm going to keep my own opinion as to which one. I think they were really very, very close in almost every way. One thing I did notice was that, and you can go back, you can watch it in slow-mo, like I said, it seems like the Furious was diversity switching more aggressively than the LaForge, pretty consistently. It did it more when I was flying around. If I would fly near to myself, it would jump to the Omni antenna real quick and then jump back. And there were a lot of instances where the Furious was jumping and jumping back, jumping and jumping back, when maybe it ought to just have sat still and not jumped. That being said, the diversity switching on both of them was very clean. I've gone back and I actually extracted every single diversity switch from the video and I watched it in slow-mo. This is what I do for you guys. And I got to tell you, there was almost never breakup due to the diversity switching itself. Maybe just the tiniest bit of breakup, but certainly nothing major. So the fact that it's diversity switching more often didn't seem to have a practical effect on the actual video quality. It was most apparent, I think, when I parked behind the house. In that case, I think I did see some cases where the Furious FPV TrueD diversity switching was causing some breakups when the signal was at its very, very weakest. I should point out that the aggressiveness of the diversity switching algorithm is adjustable on both of these modules. And so this is the default setting, but certainly you could change it to be more or less aggressive as you felt it needed to be. I will also say that I showed this footage to both UBAD and TrueD, or Furious, before making this video because I wanted to get any criticism before I released the freaking video. And Furious, at least, they took a look at it and went, oh, I think we can do that better. And they may be working on refining that diversity switching algorithm to make it just a little bit smarter. So maybe that's something we'll see an improvement of in the future. I love it that tests like this can drive development and can feed back feature suggestions and improvements to the manufacturers. And they're all listening, all of them, really. And that is going to bring us to the end of this video. But of course, I have lots of ideas for other tests that I'd like to do. Hopefully different, more interesting tests than just the same freaking range test again and again and again. Other tests to do to test the performance of these modules and to just, continue to explore how to get the best performance out of our gear. And that's really what it's all about, isn't it? Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for supporting me and making it possible for me to do this kind of research. Of course, I really enjoy this stuff. I enjoy it the first or second time I do it, at least. Maybe not the third or fourth time. But I do enjoy this stuff, and I really appreciate you guys making it possible for me to, making it worthwhile for me to spend so much time doing this. So thanks for watching, and as always, happy flying.